Let's kick things off by talking about Week 13 of the 2025 NFL season. And again, I asked, who is the best team in the NFL? Now, spoiler alert, this is being recorded on Monday prior to the Patriots-Giants game. I am assuming New England's going to win tonight. Jackson Dart is starting for the Giants. Could make things interesting. It was certainly a underdog weekend. We'll get to that in our Week 13 NFL recap. But I hope you guys all had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. If you followed my Brandon's World Thanksgiving parlay, which does not count towards our best bets, then you would know that outside of Jahmyr Gibbs not scoring a touchdown in that Thanksgiving game, and instead it was David Montgomery, unbelievably, that Travis Kelce under 60 and a half did hit. Dak Prescott, obviously, over 1.5 passing touchdowns did hit. The Bengals plus 4.5 in the first half and plus 7.5 overall did hit. Again, it doesn't count, but I'd like to brag that we went 4 for 5, which was a lot better in my best bets, which we did hit the Bengals. I already mentioned plus 7.5 on Thanksgiving night. We had a brutal loss with the Falcons, who were up 7 at one point in that game, 21-14. They lost it against the Jets. We had a brutal beat with the Dolphins, who were up by 2 scores almost the whole game against the Dolphins, and somehow only won by 4 points. We had the Indianapolis Colts just not look good. The Houston Texans defense proving they are for real. The Colts were only favored by 3.5, but they could not pull it out. And then we did have the Chargers, as I mentioned, blow out the Las Vegas Raiders by 9.5. I mean, the Raiders fired Chip Kelly to the Browns game. I talked about it when we recorded the Thanksgiving podcast last week. What are the Raiders? They're one of the worst teams in the league. Now, here's the thing. We could go through all the recaps of all the games, and let's be honest, okay? The Vikings don't have a quarterback, they got destroyed. The Saints don't have a quarterback, they got destroyed. The Titans don't have a quarterback, they got destroyed. George Sanders struggled in his first home start with the Browns. The Niners really took it to him. They weren't messing around. They got destroyed. Arizona now, I mean, they're feisty, yeah, they're competitive, but they're not a real team. Tampa mostly had control of that whole game. I look around the NFL right now, and instead of going game by game, I think at this point in the recap, we should take a holistic viewpoint of the season. Because Green Bay did upset Detroit, something I predicted, because the Lions' offensive line has not been as good. The Lions and Dan Campbell are clearly, in my opinion, missing Ben Johnson, who my Philadelphia Eagles, with two great interior defensive tackles, gave up about 300 yards on the ground against the Bears in a shocking result. Upset on Black Friday. Caleb Williams played really well. The Bears, after starting 0-2, have won 9 out of their last 10. They are currently the number one seed in the NFC after the Rams lost to the Panthers on Monday. That being, or excuse me, on Sunday, that being, of course, because Matthew Stafford for the 2 interceptions. Carolina got a pick six. Bryce Young made some incredible throws to not only Ted McMillan, but Jalen Coker on fourth down. Carolina has been a very good home team. They're a very good frisky team all year. Dallas is starting to get hot all of a sudden. Brian Schottenheimer has that offense rolling. Their defense with the additions of Logan Wilson, Quinn Williams on the backside. Eberflus has really gotten that defense to play well. Kansas City has not been explosive down the field. They're not the same team. They do have Rashid Rice. They do have Xavier Worthy. But again, they don't have that big playability, it seems like, down the field. And to me, the fact the Chiefs are what 6-6, right? They're now the Texans are 7-5. That's a huge game next Sunday night in Kansas City. The Chiefs, in my opinion, now with Buffalo being up essentially 3 games on them because of the victory head to head, Jacksonville essentially being up 3 games on them. With them winning head to head. Now the Chiefs do have the tiebreaker over the Colts, which was huge because now the Colts may fall back to the wild card positioning. I think at this point now, this has been a weird NFL year. Since week 3, in my opinion, the best team I've seen is New England, but they're young. Now, obviously, they said the president with Tom Brady back in 2001. There's no denying that New England could win the Super Bowl. I think their roster, though, is still young. I think they're still missing pieces, especially on the offensive line and at the skill position spot. Kansas City is the defending Super Bowl champions. You can never not count them out, but they don't obviously look the same. The Eagles, again, defending Super Bowl champions. We love the roster. They don't look the same, especially offensively. There's the huge debate in the NFL right now between Greg Olsen against all of these, people that are saying go for one or go for two when the Eagles were down nine. I still don't get it. I think that making it a one possession game is better. I understand the fact that if you miss the 2 point conversion, then you still have to get another 2 point conversion. But I like to coach on the basis that it's a one possession game versus two possession game. And I think this is where we're at in football. I just want to put it out there, right? That there was a lot of football to recap, right? Because there's so many games that went down. And, you're watching the 4 o'clock window on Sunday, and Buffalo is just running two plays over and over again against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Tony Romo is drawing them out on the diagram. And Pittsburgh can't stop. And they're watching the Chargers, even though it's 7-7.5 against the Raiders. You never felt like the Chargers were going to lose that game because the Raiders, outside of Brock Bowers, who had another incredible touchdown catch, just they're not a very good football team. You're watching Minnesota with Max Brosman. It's Minnesota. Brian Flores did what he said he was going to do. He's going to avoid Sam Darnold, and it worked. The Seahawks offense was not that good. It's just the Minnesota Vikings cannot move the ball offensively this season. Last year they won 14 games led by Kevin O'Connell and Sam Darnold. You're watching Washington last night. Run the football, run the football, run the football, stay within the game. Bo Nix in Denver, outside of the Cowboys and the Bengals this year, have not been able to put anybody away. And really, if Mariota gets that ball over the head of Nick Bonito, you could make a case in overtime that Washington wins that game. I thought Washington significantly outplayed Denver, especially in the second half. They overcame some bad officiating calls. There's calls all over the league that I think are being missed, specifically on offensive lines and holding. It seems to me the offensive lines are getting away with a lot more holding. That could be why scoring is down. But I think you look at the league this year, right? You have the Patriots at what I'm assuming, again, after week 13 will be 11-2. Um, I am assuming obviously that Denver now with that victory going in, they are now 10-2. They are now the number two seed in the AFC. But with Bo Nix having only one playoff start in his career, Drake May with no playoff starts in his career, there's a sense of, oh, if you're in the playoffs with a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen, you're going to take those guys and those teams because they have the better quarterback, they have the more experience. You're just going to take them. At this point, we're not even sure if Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen are going to make the playoffs. Baltimore, Lamar Jackson has not looked the same since that week 4 injury to the in the game against the Chiefs. He's come back, he's barely ran. They're stuffing Derrick Henry at the line of scrimmage. In Philadelphia, right? They're not running Jalen Hurts a lot. They have all this talent with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and people are saying, why is A.J. Brown not getting the ball? The bigger story is, why is the Eagles' offensive line giving him so many runs to Saquon Barkley and him getting it behind the line of scrimmage? Is it a scheme issue? Is it a personnel issue? Is it a talent issue? The Bears are able to run the ball for over 250 yards. The Bills are able to run the ball for over 250 yards. And Josh Allen does not have to do a lot. He just doesn't have to turn the football over. San Francisco yesterday against Cleveland, right? Brock Purdy doesn't have all gaudy numbers. Barely for the football down the field. But their defense and run game took care of the Browns because George Sanders cannot move the ball down the field. I think what we are seeing right now in the NFL is this, folks. We have quarterback and coaching. So if you look throughout the league, if you have a quarterback and you have a coach, we think obviously New England has both. Depending on your view of Denver, we know they have the coach. Some people think they have the quarterback, some people think they don't. Baltimore, we believe they have both. Pittsburgh, we believe they have the coach, and obviously Aaron Rodgers at this age cannot do much. Those receivers are not separating down the field. Clearly, to me, Pittsburgh has offensive limitations, which is what I've said all year. Indianapolis, we like their coach Shane Steichen. We thought they had their guy in Daniel Jones. He's been a good reclamation project. It seems like Liam Cohen is the guy to fix Trevor Lawrence's issues down there in Jacksonville. Houston's got one of the best defenses in the league. DeMeco Ryans is doing his things on his side of the ball. CJ Stroud all of a sudden has come back, and the offense as the season goes on has gotten more competent. And you look at in the NFC, Stafford McVay, right? The Eagles, Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni. Despite this current losing streak, they are still 8-4, and all they do is win. Brian Schottenheimer is a very good offensive coach. He's doing his side of the ball. Dak Prescott is back. He's playing at an MVP level. The defense all of a sudden got in balance. Here Dallas is winning games. Obviously, we know what the Niners are bringing. We know what the Rams bring. I already mentioned. You have Seattle, who I think has found maybe the Sean McVay on defense and Mike McDonald. You have Clint Kubiak, who is a great offensive mind. So, like Buffalo and Sean McDermott, they have a great offensive coordinator in Joe Brady. Seattle has a great offensive coordinator in Clint Kubiak. New England as well. Great offensive coordinator in Josh McDaniels, even though they have a defensive minded head coach. That is what is winning them those games. And then obviously in Tampa, they're in a little bit of a weaker division, but they got a good head coach in Todd Bowles. They got the quarterback in Baker Mayfield. Their offensive coordinators have each gotten two jobs the last couple of years, and Dave Canales, who's done a good job in Carolina, Liam Cohen, who's done a good job in Jacksonville. So I look at it like this. Bears. Last year they were a complete disaster. Matt Eberflus got fired after not managing the clock on Thanksgiving. Here they are in week 13 a year later. They're 9-3. New England, one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the league. They had the fourth overall pick in the draft last year. They changed the coach. They knew they had the quarterback in Drake May because of what they saw the year earlier, similar to Chicago and Caleb Williams. They changed the coach. They get the culture right. Coach fits the culture. Ben Johnson, Chicago, power physical. Mike Vrabel, defense, alpha in New England, do your job. Culture, boom, fix the culture there, number one seed in the league. If you have a coach and you have a quarterback, you are going to win games in the NFL. If you don't have both, you're not going to win. Look at Arizona. I like them going into the year because I like Kyler Murray. I didn't love him. I like what Jonathan Gannon did. I think they have pieces. Clearly, at this point, they don't have the quarterback, which is why they are struggling. You look at Atlanta. I'm not in love with Raheem Morris as a coach because they don't have an all-star coordinator. I think Zach Robinson is good. I don't think he's anything special. Could you imagine Michael Penix with Kevin O'Connell? It's one of the reasons why, yes, I am very concerned about the Vikings that they do not have the quarterback of the future. Because JJ McCarthy, Max Brosmer, it doesn't matter. The Minnesota offense does not look the same. And we know Matt LaFleur runs this scheme. Kevin Stefanski runs this scheme. Kyle Shanahan runs this scheme. Mike McDaniel runs this scheme. Everybody runs a similar scheme to Kevin O'Connell. Why is it not working in Minnesota? Miami, again, they're going to be an average team. They're going to win 7, 8 games. Tua Tagovailoa is like an average quarterback. He can beat the tomato cans. He can have a good day when he's at home, comfortable, in control, good weather. When it's cold weather, on the road against a bad defense, he's going to struggle, which is why the Dolphins typically win between 7 and 9 games every single year. So, there have been a lot of surprise this year in the NFL. We thought Justin Fields could be a bridge quarterback for the Jets. We're learning right now he is not. That's why the Jets are struggling. The Browns may have went to Shedeur Sanders too late, in my opinion. Maybe if they went to him earlier, instead of 3 wins, maybe they have 5 or 6. But the defense can only carry a inept offense for so long. And obviously, the Titans and Saints just have complete overhauls to do. Same thing with the Las Vegas Raiders. Pete Carroll, by the way, look at these old defensive coaches. Pete Carroll has not worked now, clearly in Las Vegas. They may need to completely reshuffle the deck. Washington goes from old defensive coach in Ron Rivera to still pretty young in his days and able to adapt Dan Quinn. They get the quarterback right with Jaden Daniels. They get the offensive coordinator right in Cliff Kingsbury. And they completely go to the NFC Championship game last year. This year, the injuries have been all beat to hell. San Francisco has been able to sustain their injuries because they have a fantastic defensive coordinator in Robert Saleh. And again, you could see the Jets yesterday. Like the hapless Jets. No receivers, no nothing. Aaron Glenn is starting to get his culture. It's very much 2021 Detroit Lions esque. They need to find their quarterback of the future, but they're starting to build some wins here, albeit against not great teams, but at least they're winning games. And so Again, the bottom of the NFL, Raiders, Browns, Titans, Saints, Cardinals at this point. You can make a case for the Falcons. Michael Penix is out for the year, they're done. It's because they're bad teams. Because they don't have a coach and because they don't have a quarterback. And what we are seeing now is through week 13, again, this is before the Patriots Giants game, eight underdogs. The Packers, the Cowboys, the Bengals, the Bears. That's four. All games before Sunday, all four underdogs won outright. Carolina, the Jets, the Texans. Excuse me, so it was seven. Carolina, Jets, Texans, plus the four games before Sunday. All those teams won outright. As well as, depending on the number you got, the Saints covered and Arizona, depending on the number you got, also covered. So what that owes us to me, and by the way, also Washington last night, obviously covered. So underdogs are either winning or they're covering, and usually at this point in the season, favorites start doing well. It's why I bet favorites. It's why I've struggled in my best bets the last few weeks. What this tells me is the NFL, as I've been saying for the past few years, has been quarterback dependent. I have always picked games based off who has the better quarterback. But now that quarterback play is getting better and coaching is getting smarter on both sides of the ball, that you can have a young defensive coach, a Mike McDonald, a Mike Vrabel, um, as I mentioned before, you could have a Dan Quinn in Washington when Jane Daniels is healthy. You could have a Sean McDermott in Buffalo, but you have to have a superstar offensive coordinator. You either have that or you have an offensive guy. And it could be a non-play caller. It could be Dan Campbell. It could be a Nick Sirianni. It could be a culture guy. But it's got to be a guy that can win the room. That's why I think Arizona, I like Jonathan Gannon. I think he's a young, smart defensive guy. I don't think he has the right quarterback, and I think he's in a very tough division. But I think if Arizona found their quarterback that fits their scheme, they have the weapons clearly, they have the personnel. They just have relied too much on Kyler Murray, who at this point in the NFL is like a Marcus Mariota or Jameis Winston. He's turning into a backup. He has not proven the ability to lead a franchise to the promised land. Baker Mayfield has found the right spot to table with Todd Bowles, a very good defensive coordinator. I would argue Baker Mayfield is significantly better than Kyler Murray, which is why Tampa Bay, even though again the game was only a 3 point game, it never felt out of reach yesterday because Arizona was playing Jacoby Brissett and not Kyler Murray. So that's where we're at with this league. I mean, Pittsburgh's a defensive minded team. They can't stop anybody. Philadelphia's defense was great. They were carrying a bad offense. It's not sustainable. The Browns' defense is top two in the league. It's not sustainable because they don't have an offense. You need a quarterback and you need a coach. And if you have that, preferably offensive. But if you have a defensive, you can get a superstar OC. I think Joe Brady would be my number one name, as I've been saying this year on the coaching carousel cycle. I think that's the way to win in today's NFL. I think that explains why the NFL is so evenly balanced. And I think why moving forward in week 14, you're going to see me change my strategy. I think I'm going to go some underdogs. I've been picking favorites. I've been trying to play numbers. It's not been working. We are 3 out of our last 10 in best bets. Something has to change. And I think this explains why underdogs are covering. Once again, they did early in the year, they did late in the year. We had a little bit of a 3 4 week stretch there where favorites were dominant, but I think the NFL is as close as it's ever been. And I don't think there is a true top dominant team. I mean, look at the NFC. The Bears are 9-3, the Niners are 9-4. One of those teams is going to be the number one seed. The other is the number seven seed right now, currently in the NFC. So it's really anybody's ball game. I mean, all these teams are even. All these teams have flaws. New England, I think it's skill position. Rams, I think it's secondary. Philadelphia, their roster doesn't look like it has holes, maybe outside a second corner, but their offensive scheme has holes. Denver, do we trust the quarterback? Bo Nix in the postseason make big time throws when it matters? Pittsburgh, they have no deep threat down the field whatsoever outside of DK Metcalf. Baltimore, really struggling to maintain the line of scrimmage to run the football. Buffalo, it's their outside weapons and their run defense. Jacksonville, their secondary. Houston, their offensive line. Indianapolis, probably is Daniel Jones, a lot like Bo Nix. Are you going to trust him to lead you to the promised land when it matters? He's also injured. So there's a lot of factors here, right? And I think it makes for arguably a really good playoff, but I think what we're seeing now is there's some bad NFL teams and it's making for somewhat boring games on Sundays.
Like that clip from the Brandon Wolf podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brandon Wolf podcast right here on YouTube.